Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races, and today we're going to have a look at the Cheltenham Festival Day 3, the Thursday. Look for any horses that were eye-catching, worth following going forwards, and if there was any disappointments and who can we kind of discount going forward as well. So, let's crack on. The first race was the Marsh Novices Chase, which saw Sam Crow narrowly beat Melon with Forheen in third. Now, Melon has finished second at the Cheltenham Festival now 4 times, and Connections are surely loving it but hating it at the same time. He's such a credit to them, but he keeps finding one too good, and this time it was Sam Crow. It's strange, if you had shown me this result for this Novice Chase back in 2018, I'd have been like, yeah, that makes sense, you know, all the right form and the right horses are there. Show me in 2020, it's like, it kind of reminds me, although Sam Crow's not that old, and Melon's not that old really, it kind of reminds me of Nadal and Federer and Djokovic, still around and still beating all the up-and-coming horses, or tennis players in their spot. And it kind of, I would just doubt the form of those in behind a little bit going forward, because surely something should have been good enough to beat a Sam Crow, a Melon, a Forheen, but they weren't, which would be concerning. The horse I did want to give a very slight mention to, and I've just got a feeling he might be better than what he showed, is Saint Sonnet. Now, he's come over from France, and he made his debut for Paul Nicholls just 16 days before this race. And he's only 5, and with that in mind, he arguably ran a good race. He looked in a bit of trouble when he was shuffled back at halfway, before picking up and was actually coming around the outside and looking like he was going to get really involved at the third last. But he probably didn't find as much off the bridle as Connections would have hoped. He's definitely not one to give up on. He's definitely got a bit ability, and he should go further going forwards. He's only, as I said, he's only 5, so there should still be more to come, and he's worth just looking out for. I had highlighted the Sussex Champion Chase at Plumpton, but I can't imagine that'll be on. But you can be sure that Paul will be looking for a race for him, probably next season now, that he can pick up and just see where they end up with him. You know, he might not be a Grade 1 Ryanair horse, but I think he'd be better than what it looked like he was going to be after. Some would say he disappointed in the Marsh Novices. But let's move on to the second race of the day, and it was the Pertemps Final. Now, this was another great race, and this time I think the form will work out well. I thought all the right horses were in the finish. I thought Cider Burley and the Storyteller were given absolute brilliant rides from Barry Geraghty and Davy Russell respectively. Two Permis we'd already highlighted earlier on this season. Relegate we'd highlighted earlier this season. In fact, the 4 of the front 5, Cider Burley, the Storyteller, Two Permis and Relegate, were highlighted in our NagMe thread and on Twitter throughout the season with this race in mind. And we were, I think, a head or a neck off getting a 1, 2, 3, 4 from our only 4 NagMes in the race that ran. So that was a good use of the NagMe tool, I would imagine, or I would suggest. And I have created a video about the NagMe and how you can use it yourself. It's a brilliant free tool that we have on our website, and I can't recommend it enough. So, Cider Burley and the Storyteller, they came alongside Two Permis, who probably hit the front coming into the final hurdle. But both Cider Burley and the Storyteller were still travelling well. And you'd probably suggest that Barry had to do a bit more work on Cider Burley, but he got everything out of Cider Burley, and he was definitely the best horse on the day. And he'll now be out of handicap company for sure. He was already top weight. The storyteller probably going to be out of top weight as well, out of handicaps as well, an integrated company, and it'll be interesting to see where they go with them two next. Two I do like going forward. Two Permi is still ridiculously well handicapped over hurdles compared to his chase mark, and he's been beaten by the right horses in the Pertemps finals. There was nothing wrong with that. They could try a whole season and aiming him for this, or they may go back over fences and see if they can get more out of him over fences. But he's better handicapped over hurdles, so I'd be trying to keep him over hurdles. The second horse that's got to be added to your NagMe, I really do believe this, and it wouldn't surprise me if this really was a whole season plot going forward next year. Relegate. Go back, watch her ride. Paul Townend is so far back on her. He has given her far, far too much to do. And she was, what does it say? It was 17th jumping the second last. 17th. And yet she's finished 5th, a closing 5th, and never near a 5th, behind the right horses. She's finished like a train. I thought it was one of the worst rides of the festival, potentially. She may have been given an absolute peach of a ride to get her for 5th, but I think it was a poor ride, and if he could ride relegate again, he would, and I think he'd do a much better job. Anything around the same mark as she is this year for next year, and I think she goes really close. Watch out for her for just sneaking in, finishing 5th or 6th in a qualifier, and turning up next year to try and take on Gordon Elliott's battalion that are likely to line up in the Pertemps final again. Moving on to the Ryanair Chase, our top-rated Min won the race, which was fantastic. But for me, there is only one horse you can take out of this race, and that's St Calvados. This was only his second start over this trip, and he initially settled well, but then did get a bit keen through the middle of the race. When he was turning for home, I still thought he was probably going best of all, and he just got caught on the inside of Min, who closed the gap, and then similar happened at the final fence, and it was closed instantly by Min again. Gavin Sheehan had to really pull him back, try and switch, and then he got after him again. Now, Min is no slouch, and Min is a proven horse. He gets up the hill fine. St Calvados has very nearly run him down. Without being snatched up a couple of times and with a clearer run, St Calvados wins that. And I think becomes, okay, everyone now goes back to what they thought when he was running over 2 mile. He is very, very good, and especially over 2.5 miles, not the 2 miles that he had, not the 2 miles that he had been running over, it's his 2.5 mile. There was the Melling Chase at Aintree that looked like it would have suited perfectly, but I definitely think you should be keeping an eye on him for all the 2.5 chases next year. I wouldn't be taking him on too early at all. If he turned back up in the Ryanair, that would be the one I would be backing for sure. He's still quite young. He's still got more to come. That was only his second run over the distance, and more experience over the trip, and I think he'll settle better. And yeah, as I said, with a clearer run, I think he would have won, and he didn't get any credit that he deserved, really. I thought he was a very unlucky loser, and people were not really interested. They were like, yeah, Min won it, and Min deservedly won it. I wasn't so sure, but go back and watch the race and let me know what you think. So we'll move on from that race onto the Stayers Hurdle, where this looked a bit of a mess, especially with Paisley Park running an absolute shocker. He did have a heart issue after the race, but he's back to full health now, and he should be back next season to try and defend his crown, where I would argue he's still the one to beat. On a going day, he beats all of these again. The one I was interested in going forward, because I didn't like a lot of these, I think the wrong horses have won the race. I don't think the form will work out well. Lisnagar Oscar, he was 120 on Betfair for a reason. His form isn't strong enough. He's won a Grade 1 when he shouldn't have. I would say he's fluked it in winning this race. Emma Thomas is the one I'm interested in going forwards, purely because he's still kind of working his way back from injury. Hopefully, better season next season, better ground, and I'd like to see him improve on this run again and be the big challenger to Paisley Park next season, and see how he gets on. I would imagine connections of Emma Tom will certainly try and keep Emma Tom away from Paisley Park earlier on in the season, and as I said, probably turn up at the festival with Paisley Park as the favourite, Emma Tom as second favourite, and any of the novices that are coming through just behind in the betting. Hopefully he can prove that he is that Grade 1 class, and I expect him to pick up a good few races next year. If we move on to the next race, it was the Brown Advisory Stable Plate, and there again, I think the form was really, really strong. Simply the Bets won it. We'd highlighted Simply the Bets in our NagMe back in early January, or late January, sorry, when he disappointed at Kempton, and we highlighted that he really didn't want to go at Kempton. He hated it. He looked like he was out with a washing. He was struggling, but then he ran on really strongly to finish second, albeit beating quite a long way. Come end of January, he ran at Cheltenham, and on the Tuesday we highlighted him at 10-1 for the race, and he ended up winning it at 7-2. The race worked out really well. He beat Imperial Aura and On the Slopes. I actually tweeted after that race, delighted with that. This form will work out well. It really has worked out well. 2 Cheltenham Festival winners, and On the Slopes 2 from 2 since. So that's another use of another way of how you can use the NagMe to great effect. This race, Simply the Bets, he was very, very impressive. He really knows how to battle. He's very game. He'll be climbing up those ranks very, very quickly. And he's kind of beaten the right horses, as I said. He beat Happy Diva, who's got form at the Cheltenham Festival. He's got form. She's got form here over this trip. Mr. Whitaker is a former Novice Chase handicap winner. Old Grangewood came into the race in good form, and was one of the horses that had previously beaten St Calvados over 2.5 miles. Ben Dundee travelled like he was going to win for Gordon Elliott. The one that caught my eye that isn't actually in those top 5, they're quite obvious, the top 5. The one that really caught my eye was Spirit of the Games. Normally he jumps off and he settled in mid-division and had been running some really big races in the Caspian Caviar, the December Gold Cup, all the right races over this trip and track. And I think because of the standing start, he just jumped off really, really slowly, and that just set him on the back foot from the start, and he didn't jump hardly any of the fences very well at all. He either ploughed through them, jumped them too big, was really slow, and the amount of ground he must have lost was crazy, to be honest. And he looked like he was going to... I thought he was going to pull up, because he just wasn't going at all. Old Grangewood, his stablemate, was going much better in front of him. But to Bridget Andrews' credit, she kept asking Spirit of the Games to keep going, and he did. And he kept going. He got hampered then a couple of times, but he kept running. His jumping eventually warmed up a little bit, and he ran on to finish arguably a never near a 6th. If he'd jumped better, and if he'd been from his usual position, I think he would have gone very, very close here in a race that I think the form will work out really, really well. So with that in mind, all of the races that he ran in this season at Cheltenham, I would be backing him again for in next season. As I said, the December Gold Cup, the Caspian Caviar, all of those races, and then even in this race, if they have disappointed up to that point, or in this race if he's off a similar mark. If he obviously goes and wins one of the earlier races in November or December, you'll probably find he runs in the Ryanair. But if he does end up in this race due to having not quite been up to scratch for the season, I'd be backing him here. I think he was very, very unlucky, and a full season being aimed at this race rather than those earlier races, he would go very, very close. So if we move on to the next race, it was the Mares Novice Hurdle, and this was arguably one of our results of the week. Concertista, we'd advised after one of my really long blog posts. It was long, but it was worth reading and got really good feedback from our members, highlighting horses that had run at the Cheltenham Festival in 2019 that were arguably unlucky or had bumped into a couple, similar to what we're doing here. And I felt Concertista was really unlucky, having had 600 and something days off the track, having its first run for Willie Mullins. She ran a cracker and got nailed on the line. Nothing wrong with that at all. We'd advised her for this race at 33-1, and over the weeks before, she went from 12s into, I think she went off at 9-2 in the end, and she was probably the most impressive winner of the week. Especially by distance. Obviously, you could say the likes of Envoy Elen or Shishkin were very, very impressive, but Concertista, she absolutely smashed these. They were still jumping the last when she was crossing the line. And of those, she is the only one you want to take on, or take forward going forward. Take with you going forward, should I say. Connections had talked about stepping her up in distance to 2.5 mile, so something like the Coral Cup could be where she may end up next season. And she's proven she likes the Cheltenham Festival, having finished first and second now in this Mares Novice. And she's definitely one to keep an eye on. I didn't like anything else in that race and would be happy to leave everything else. So the final race of the day was the Muir Handicap Chase, and we were on Lebroy and Kilfillan Cross, and it was gutting to see Kilfillan Cross finish second again, this time beaten by Milan Native. Last year it was by Any Second Now. You could say that Milan Native could be one of these horses to go on like Any Second Now and potentially be a Grand National horse of the future. Whilst Bob Marler and Plan of Attack both run really good races, the one I'm interested in here is Fitzhenry. Go and watch the ride that Patrick Mullins gave Fitzhenry. It was kind of similar to Relegate for Paul Townend. Right out the back, never involved. I don't think Patrick moved on Fitzhenry, and it probably wasn't until just before the last that he actually thought, hang on a sec, I need to get going here. He jumped the last back in 8th, ran on really strongly to finish just a neck behind 5th. He could have easily got up for 5th, and was only 9 lengths behind the winner, having not really been asked for any sort of effort for most of the race. As we've highlighted here, he's already finished 4th in a Grand National trial, 3rd over the Irish National trip, and did get an entry today for the Irish Grand National, and he's one that I'm very, very keen on for the Irish Grand National. So yeah, they are my horses that I think we should be adding to our RTR NagMe, and hopefully we've highlighted some races that they may end up in. If you was to force me to just give you one horse for the day, or one horse to take forward, I would probably say Spirit of the Games. I do think he can win off his current handicap mark. He was very, very unlucky. He wasn't unlucky, he just didn't jump well enough. And had he jumped better, he would have gone very, very close in what I think would have been a very good race. So yeah, there's my horses for Cheltenham Day 3. Fingers crossed they can provide us with some winners next season. Thanks, guys, for listening.